Welcome. Please rise and body your spirit, and we're going to sing as a gathering hymn, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. And how about as a round, right? We don't have like a fourth side here, so normally we're like 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sense? Just choose. All right, here we go. One time all together, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of me. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, whoever you are. Ours is no everybody together now. Come, yet again,
Please join me in our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving heart. Together, we care for the church and each other. Good morning. Welcome to St. John's Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Rita Volz, and I'm your worship associate today, and Reverend Alice Diebel is our worship officiant. We'd like to give a special welcome to our online viewers who can't be with us today. We are a community of brave, curious, compassionate thinkers and doers. We are diverse in faith, ethnicity, history, and spirituality, but aligned in our desire to make a difference for the good. We have a track record of standing in the side of love, justice, and peace. We're so happy that you've chosen to worship at St. John's today. Please join us in hymn 317.
Please rise and body your spirit. Here we go. We are not our own. Earth forms us. Human beings on nature's growing vine. Fruit of many generations. Seeds of life.
Please join me in our affirmation. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.
This is the time in the service where you can join in a ritual of recognizing joys and sorrows held within. If you are willing and able and wish to share something, come forward and take a stone and place it in the sand. If you have a joy or sorrow you wish to be shared publicly and you're online, you can type it in the chat or you can write it on a piece of paper and we'll read it when it comes time for the prayer. Rita lit our lamp to illuminate the joys and sorrows you carry within, and when you take them out with you, carry that light in your heart. We now have a story, so I'm going to invite Ashley Rhodes to come forward. And Ashley, are people going to watch in there or in here? Okay, come on up.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Rhodes, and I'm in charge of the children's programming here at St. John's. And today we have a story for you called Big and Small and In Between. The first part is big things. The sun and its shine. When it asks you to rise. The donut that your brother got because you picked last and only got the whole. A pile of leaves after they've all been raked and before you jump. The trophy you got for the jump rope contest because your feet remembered the pattern. Those kids on the playground when you want to use the seesaw and so you swing instead. The elephant's tea party and his stack of jam sandwiches and the chip in his teacup. A mess, even the accident kind, when there aren't enough rags to clean it up. How much bravery it takes to jump into the deep end without the floaty things on your arms. That's a big thing. How quiet it gets when it's your turn on stage and you're not sure about your talent. That's a very big quiet. The way the moon looks if you use a telescope and spin the fuzziness out. Very big. A bear and her mama and her pop and the hugs they probably give each other. Big hugs. The hole when you are done with the digging. The castle when it's finished. The way the ocean feels when it stands in front of you. Is the ocean very big? Yes. This is the part 2, in between things. The dirt that knows the promise underneath and the sunshine that's above. Medium. The teeter-totter, not when it's up or when it's down, but when two smiles meet in the middle. Your tooth when it wiggles and waggles, but isn't all the way in or all the way out. We know about that, right? What you are on your half birthday, not even or odd. The leftover balloons that are losing their oomph, but not all the way droopy. A boat below the sky and above the swell. Is it between the sky and the water? The caterpillar that once was an egg, but will fly away soon. A handful of nickels that fell out of a pocket and got smooshed in the sofa. The water that got dirty because it cleaned your brushes so you could make this. Do you see the painting? Those cozy socks that keep your feet warm and your shoes less smelly. When the marshmallow gets gooey and sticks to the graham cracker and the chocolate and the other graham cracker. It's smooshed in between, huh? The stars that make a picture in the middle of the night. That's a different kind of middle. When the outside and the inside of the hole are about the same, and the tide pulls your castle back to sea, and the ocean floats between you and another world. Part 3, small things. The baby blue promise in a robin's nest, and the bird beginning to sing, and the worm who wished he hadn't been seen. The plip of a raindrop and the puddle where it falls for a butterfly to sip. The seed that was stuck in the soil and the carrot that didn't want to grow and his shy green crown that tried anyway. A snail and her home and the road she has traveled. See the little snail? What's left of your fort after your mom says to clean up those pillows? The goldfish you love and his eyes that tell you he's a good listener. The mouse's tea party and her Swiss cheese sandwiches and the chip in her teacup. The sun right before it slips away when it is going gone. Oh, I can't read those words. The bright lights. I can't read the last bit. So small we can't read it. The wishes you leave for the tooth fairy and the one you trade for a handful of coins.
Is that coins?
Oh, you get $1, huh?
Yeah, we get dollars.
The sliver of moon that sneaks in through the window and the barely there breeze and the dream dust it brings. The hole when you start to dig, the castle when you start to build, the way you feel when you stand in front of the ocean. Small. This is the last bit, just a little more. Everything. The bluest sky. The bittiest bug. And you in the middle of it all. And that's the end of our story. Thank you for listening. We are going to go outside. Bye.
Will you join me, please, in a spirit of prayer or meditation? I have a few joys and sorrows, concerns from the community here. Martha McLeod writes, she needs to mark the passing of Mary Taylor, a friend from Greenwich Village in the 60s. She worked as a prison chaplain at some of the creepiest places ever. She also worked in large Manhattan hospitals. Among other things, the chaplains would visit people who left the religion line blank. When she introduced herself to one of those people, a pleasant young man, he explained that he was a Freudian atheist and that all he believed in was sex. Virtually every involvement with Mary included laughter, love, and a hefty dose of reality. She will be greatly missed. Someone also lifts up the concern and sadness for all the life on earth in this heat, and especially those who have no access to air conditioning. I'd also like to let you all know that Ron Kreischer had major surgery. He is doing well. He's out of ICU, beginning to take nutrition. Please hold Ron in your hearts. He's a newer member here. Yeah. And for any of those unspoken sorrows held deep inside, may we hold one another in the love of this community. Please reflect now on these words by Maureen Killeran. Spirit of all blessing, be with us in the ordinariness of our days. May hope's light guard us and keep cynicism from our hearts. May the energy of laughter build endurance for the hard times of our lives. May creativity's vision grant the possibility of seeing old relationships with new eyes. May the oil of healing keep us from anger's hardness or despair. May the mantle of humility give courage to admit when we are wrong. May compassion's loom weave in us the discipline to forgive. May patience help us bear in mind that ours is not the only scale of time. May the flame of justice be a beacon for choices we must make. May peace be ever in us and sustain our stressful days. Spirit of all blessing, be with us in the ordinariness of our days. May it be so, and amen. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received for the work of this church, the work here inside, and the work in the community.
Our reading today is a bit of a humorous one. It's a takeoff of what some of you may remember is the chain letter, right? If you don't send it to the 50 people you know, your wish isn't going to be granted. So this is kind of a spin-off on that. The results of a computerized survey indicate the perfect minister preaches exactly 15 minutes. He condemns sins but never upsets anyone. He works from 8 a.m. until midnight and is also a janitor. He makes $50 a week, wears good clothes, buys good books, drives a good car, and gives about $50 weekly to the poor. He is 28 years old and has preached 30 years. He has a burning desire to work with teenagers and spends all of his time with senior citizens. The perfect minister smiles all the time with a straight face because he has a sense of humor that keeps him seriously dedicated to his work. He makes 15 calls daily on congregation families, shut-ins, and the hospitalized, and is always in his office when needed. If your minister does not measure up, simply send this letter to 6 other churches that are tired of their minister too. Then bundle up your minister and send him to the church at the top of the list. In 1 week, you'll receive 1,643 ministers, and one of them will be perfect. Have faith in this procedure. One church broke the chain and got its old minister back in less than 3 weeks, so don't break the chain. On that note, I just want to add one other thing. 2023 has been a year of transformation for St. John's. In good ways and sad ways and in other, however way you want to interpret that. I mean, look at this transformation. I want to take a moment and thank Reverend Alice for being part of this transition. We needed a time for self-reflection, clarity, and peace. And I believe she was the soul who came in and gave that to us. So please, this is a day to thank her for what she's done. This is her last Sunday with us. Reverend Grayson joins us on the first Sunday of August. So please join me in thanking Reverend Alice.
Not supposed to make me cry before I'm doing a sermon, Rita. I started this sermon by writing kind of a quick recap of the past year's events, and I scratched that idea. Suffice it to say, it's been kind of a rough year in the aftermath of the minister's sudden resignation. I've been filling in as best I can, and today is my last Sunday with you before Reverend Jen begins. This is a time of hope and progress for St. John, so if you're visiting with us today, and you're wondering what's going on, come back. We're pretty stable, yeah. The story Ashley read to you was about the big things, the in-between things, and the small things. We'll start with the big things, the mess and the bravery. You have been through a traumatic experience. A mess. You've had significant loss, and that brings with it grief and all the feelings that go with grief, shock, denial, anger, bargaining, and finally acceptance. It's brave to stay with St. John's and work it through together. It's brave to work through your loss and grief and to share and to listen to one another. Working it through requires some vulnerability, but it hopefully gets us beyond finger pointing and blaming. It's brave to admit that maybe we all made some mistakes and have work to do to make changes in ourselves as well as in the institution. The mess and the bravery. Unitarian Universalist minister Jen Crow wrote a book called Take What You Need. Crow was transformed quite literally by a bolt of lightning. The jolt which destroyed her home in a fire forced her to consider what she really needed as she looked to rebuild her life. Talk about bravery and mess. In her book, Crow offers new perspectives for all of us trying to understand our past, our unexpected suffering, our failures, so we too can begin charting a course forward, one drawn from resilience and hope. One of the values I've heard you express in the past year is resilience. How we respond to the unexpected twists and turns of our lives, our resilience, is shaped by the spiritual values that sustain us and the people that support us. Crow has been a recovering alcoholic since high school. She tells the story of how she was underestimated by a condescending high school principal who told her she couldn't do what she yearned to do. She wrote, "When I heard the principal say I couldn't do it, I rejected that. I said, no, I'm coming back. People have invested in me, and I'm not going to let them down." Crow recognized the spiritual value of connection. Crow writes, "As a minister, I get the honor of holding so many people's stories. I've learned that everybody suffers, and much of our suffering comes from the stories we tell ourselves and others. When we focus our attention on the fire and forget the people standing in front of us with their arms extended, when we pause long enough to listen and get curious enough to question, then we can shift the story in life-giving ways." What will St. John's story look like? You want to tell it truthfully, but I hope it will shift toward the spiritual values you hold of connection, care, and resilience. In your listening circles, you told the story of ministry at St. John's as a two-way street with mistakes made all around. I sensed a healthy balance in that story, and perhaps the recognition that you didn't have the perfect pastor. There is no perfect pastor, is there, Rita? Crow wrote about balance. She said, "My therapist has been teaching me to move beyond the either-or mindset that I've clung to learn the concept of both and, where multiple things can be true at the same time. Among the first complexities I learned," she wrote, "was that people can love you and hurt you. You can understand things one way now and another way later, and both are true. We can be in the same room, objectively witnessing the same events and experience them completely differently. Your culture and mine, our backgrounds, life experiences, opportunities, worldviews, identities, and so much more shift and change, a kaleidoscope of possibility and beauty. Maybe love was always there, right alongside the pain. St. John's, I need only look a short distance and I see a future-oriented congregation trying to make a difference. Just look at the walls here. I see a welcome Reverend Jen Grayson sign on the wall, which means you want to move forward in partnership with professional ministry. A brave act after you've been hurt. You are fortunate to have a strong congregation that could attract an interim minister at a time when there is a minister shortage. I hope that you will lean in to what Reverend Jen will lead you through, and I hope you will work to bring good change and an even stronger congregation filled with possibilities. I know you will, actually. And I see evidence. I see evidence. You are committed to a church home in Cincinnati because you know Unitarian Universalism is needed here. You are so committed to a UU presence that you are working to preserve your building for the future. It is brave to pursue a capital campaign in the midst of the mess. You are committed to offering hospitality to your neighbor here in Cincinnati, offering your place as a place for people who have no home to go to. They will stay with us for a week in October and then for 2 weeks every year after that. Evidence. Our story then moves to the in-between. The teeter-totter balanced in the middle, the half-full balloons, the caterpillar that flies away as a butterfly. This in-between stuff is hard too. On top of the loss of the minister, there have been other half-full balloons or caterpillars that have flown away. Some members have left, not able to stay, not trusting who St. John's really is. Some people have started to come back, at least putting their toes in the water. On top of that, the pandemic has disconnected you from one another, but that's kind of an in-between thing too, isn't it? The move to multi-platform worship you created during the pandemic means that you are now more accessible to people who can't come in, people with mobility concerns. And I see people rah-rah back there. There's more you can do, of course. And a third thing is that the board is working on strengthening trust by communicating more, making meetings hybrid so more can attend, and building covenantal relationships with each other. I hope you'll read the board covenant that describes what they expect from one another. It's posted in the church trustee bulletin board. Jen Crow also wrote about some of the best advice she ever received. She wrote, "In whatever situation you find yourself, take what you need and leave the rest behind. Don't waste your energy arguing. Just take what you need and leave the rest behind." She writes, "Over the years, I've found this advice works not only for family gatherings and 12-step meetings, but for the larger project of spiritual living too. And the best news of all, this taking what we need and leaving the rest behind isn't only a one-time thing. We can do it anytime. Looking back over our lives, we can hear the stories anew, choosing where to focus our attention and where to widen our view. We can let go of old ways of understanding that no longer serve us, and we can wiggle our way free, becoming the meaning makers and the storytellers of our own lives. We get to choose what we need in a given moment, and what we need gets to change," she concludes. Now, that doesn't mean papering over or ignoring the hard parts of the story, but it means facing what happened, learning from it, and moving on, taking what you need and what works for you as a spiritual community. I want to remind you of the Zen story of letting go. 2 traveling monks reached a town where there was a young woman waiting to step out of her sedan chair. The rains had made deep puddles, and she couldn't step across them without soiling her silken robes. She stood there, looking very cross and impatient. She was scolding her attendants. They had nowhere to place all the packages they were carrying for her, so they couldn't help her across the puddle. The younger of the 2 monks noticed her and walked by. The older monk quickly picked her up, put her on his back, and walked her across to the other side and put her down. She didn't thank the older monk, she just shoved him out of the way and left. As they continued on their way, the young monk was brooding and preoccupied. After several hours, unable to hold his silence, he spoke out, "That woman back there was very rude. She didn't even thank you for what you did. You picked her up on your back and carried her. She didn't even say thank you." The older monk said, "I set that woman down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" St. John's, you are doing some letting go, but letting go doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means protecting ourselves from the corrosive effects of staying stuck, of staying anger. Chronic anger and bitterness can sap our energy and limit our creativity. It can keep us stuck, unable to see an optimistic future. Whether or not we forgive ourselves and each other, I hope St. John's makes the choice to set the anger down. I believe you are doing so. I have evidence. Many of you are trying to build your skills by taking anti-racism classes, leadership development classes, and interpersonal harmony classes. Some of you have rejoined the compassionate communication or nonviolent communication practice group. One of the action items you've said you want to do is build stronger conflict resolution skills and develop a right relations team. These are good things. We all get angry. Let's learn how to express our anger, how to respond when someone else is angry. It's good stuff. And finally, the book speaks of the small things, the promise of an egg, the seed stuck in the soil, the eyes of a goldfish that shows he's a good listener, and you in the middle of it all. To me, it seems like nothing is small, really, but these so-called small things matter. At our Unitarian Universalist Association annual General Assembly held last month, we heard from the newly elected UUA president, Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. She talked a lot about Unitarian Universalism as a community of care. What seeds of care and welcoming are we planting? What will it take to water and fertilize them, get them unstuck? Will you spend the time to listen to one another with goldfish eyes? I hope you will take the time to learn, to listen, and to learn and build empathy. And there's more. I am so grateful to those of you who have worked to make this place welcoming and inviting by decluttering, talking with one another during coffee hour, and especially by talking to visitors. And I especially appreciate those of you who have given me words of appreciation. You have no idea how much that means. I don't really like to be the center of attention, even though I'm up front. That's different. But it feels good to hear something specific that you have appreciated. It's fulfilling. My mentor tells the story of one of our ministerial colleagues who drove 2 hours once a month from the city to preach and serve a small rural fellowship. She never received anything back, and I'm not talking about money. There was no reciprocity. Nothing fulfilling came her way, no feedback at all. She would have continued this work for another year, but she decided to leave. Turns out the congregation loved what the minister brought to them. They just never told her. Now, perhaps this is not a small thing, but I think it needs to be said. Feel free to send a note of gratitude or appreciation to your new minister and also to the board and to each other for the things that you do for one another. It goes a long way. And if you have a criticism, we need those too. We ministers are not at all up on a pedestal. We're not perfect. No minister is. But before you hit send on that critical email or open your mouth with a reaction, pause. Ask yourself, am I holding on to the past? What am I reacting to? Am I really moving on? Is my concern based in, that's not how we do things here? Please think about how your concern should be shared in love and open-heartedness. Sometimes we make assumptions that are incorrect. I hope you will learn humility. We all need this. By taking the time to pause, to stop, and listen. Then ask questions without assuming you know the answer. I so appreciate those of you who have raised concerns to me in very loving and appropriate ways. I know you have the well-being of St. John's at heart. We need you. If God is love, as our Universalist forebears proclaimed, then God is in the creative relationships among us. What we create together can be done in curiosity, love, and care, or it can be done in I know best. I hope you choose curiosity, love, and care. We all are learning how challenging relationships can be, Another thing you are doing is learning to deal with microaggressions and hurts we inadvertently cause one another. And these hurts are often done by white middle-class people to BIPOC, trans, differently abled, and lower income siblings. Learn to talk to one another about these things. Learn to apologize and do better. If such behavior persists, take a look at how it might be addressed at the institutional level. These small things, these so-called micro things, can add up and become big things. St. John's is a community, a body. We are held together in this community by care and covenant. Why is St. John's here? What made all of you brave people stay in the face of such difficulty? It's because you know Unitarian Universalism is needed in this world, it is needed in Cincinnati, and it is needed for you personally. You need each other. Immigrants need you. People who are unhoused need you. Trans people need you. Women facing unimaginable choices need you. Democracy needs you. Amen? Amen. You are siding with love in covenant and care. St. John's works to make the world a better place in loving relationship with our Transylvania siblings, found house neighbors, and by immigrants seeking sanctuary. St. John's is welcoming to LGBTQ plus people. St. John's is resolute that Black lives matter. St. John's also seeks healthier discourse and intelligence. May we also seek emotional intelligence, do deep listening, and transform ourselves to live into these ideals. The world is hard right now. This post-pandemic stuff is real, and on top of that, you have post-minister stuff. And we've had to do some soul searching about what must change and what must endure. What must change and what must endure. The tension between keeping our history and heritage alive and moving into an unknown future is ever present in the world, and especially so in Unitarian Universalism and at St. John's. You are facing one more challenge that many others are not facing, the ending of one called minister and the beginning of an interim period. Where you go from here is unknown. What matters most? I have hopes about what you will hold on to and what you will let go of. But of course, it's up to you to work on the big things, the in-between things, and the small things. I hope you will let go of the habit to quickly jump to criticism. I hope you will all learn how to address conflict with love and compassion. I hope you will live into your mission, covenant with one another for the mission, care for one another in the work of the mission. I hope you will care for one another, notice one another, be kind to one another. I hope you will hold on to love, care, and generosity of spirit. May it be so. May we make it so. Amen. special piece of music in the summer when you're supposed to be off. I appreciate it. We have a couple of announcements, or one announcement, I think. A couple of announcements. You may have noticed that there are books in Kroll Pfeiffer in our fellowship hall. There's a half-price book sale today during coffee hour, and there are a variety of titles, and most of the books are from In Spirit, the UUA bookstore. Mary Newman will return in a week with any books that remain. Some of them are really good, I gotta say. Also, the Declutter group is having a giveaway located in the coat room. We're getting the building in better shape for the arrival of Reverend Jen and for Found House. You'll find a wide variety of items, and there may be something just for you. I have snagged some things. The giveaway will continue next Sunday, June 23rd. After that, the items will be donated, recycled, or disposed of. Support the Declutter group by taking something home. And even though this is my last Sunday with you, I will be available through the end of the month. After that, I will not be able to maintain contact with you out of my covenant with Reverend Jen. This separation is necessary for Reverend Jen to begin her relationship with you and for me to move on. So thank you for honoring this covenant. I'm grateful to you all and to all the staff who are here today, except for Nancy. I thank her too. I will do the same. Yeah, you are an unforgettable church. I interned here, and it was wonderful to be back with you and to spend this difficult time with you. Please join in hymn. The hymn is in your insert. It's not in the hymnal. It's Life Calls Us On, one of my faves.
We have one more announcement. The Board of St. John's, and really our entire congregation, thank you, Reverend Alice, for everything that you've been doing for us.
And now life will call us on.
Turning on.
Friends, we part in 2 weeks. I will be prayerfully rooting for you in the year to come. May faith call you on to build the beloved community with care and love for each other. We will meet again. For today, go in peace, return in love. Amen.